Attention. Stand by for Tiberium Dangers Update. Tiberium is named after the Tiber River in Italy, where it was first discovered. There are now more than 200 areas of the Earth affected by Tiberium deposits. Tiberium appears to be spreading by means of conveyance unknown.
Dr. Mobius, tell our viewers just what Tiberium really is.
Molecularly, it's a non-carbon-based element that appears to have strong ferrous qualities with non-resonating reversible energy that has a tendency to disrupt carbon-based molecular structures with inconsequent and unequal positrons orbiting on the first, second, and ninth quark rings.
Whoa, is that good or bad?
Ooh, let me put it this way, Eddie. The possibilities of Tiberium are limitless.
Well, now let me ask you, by limitless, you say that...
We now know that not only does Tiberium leach elements from the soil, but it appears to also leach vital nutrients from all plant life. Human contact with Tiberium is extremely toxic and often fatal. Exposure should be avoided.
Commander, you've been hustled. The UN wasn't against me. Not all of them, at least. But we had to play that little game to lull Kane into a false sense of security. I've unlocked some new UN funding. It should help take care of this madman for good. Morelli, we got some new toys for you. You've read the classified briefings about Orca, and here she is. I need you and Morelli to take a couple of these babies up and put them through the mill. Concentrate on a radius of 50 miles around Trieste, Slovenia, and see what you can scout up.
Welcome back, Commander. So it's taken us this long to learn in the GDI campaign again, I guess, that Tiberium is poisonous and dangerous to people in general. It's a little strange that Carter gets no mention. I wonder if it was this thing where they were maybe not going to acknowledge that he died, or maybe we're supposed to believe that somebody else and not Carter died, or I don't know. I think that's also the only line that I can quote from Shepard that has any emotion to it.
New construction options.
It's just a shame that he forgot about loyalty and respect. So I was trying something here. Don't pay attention to it. It's not going to be relevant for 80 missions or something. And seriously, anybody who knows what I was doing, don't talk about it, please. It's better when you see it in action. Man, look at that pitiful Tiberium field.
Construction complete. New construction options.
I know I like to complain about small Tiberium fields and like low funds and so on.
Construction complete.
Which also, Shepard, seriously, you unlocked additional GDI funds? Where's my money? I'm already cash strapped again. Whatever. I guess, like, thematically, it makes sense. Tiberium, at least from, like, what we've been able to piece together from the various briefings and other information, spreads slowly. And it's kind of like this fledgling thing. People are scrambling, trying to figure out what is the actual potential of Tiberium. And as a result, it's not like the world is already, like, it's not covered in this stuff. It's not overrun by it. It's just this new material that is like the soup du jour. Everybody wants a piece of it. Everybody wants to see, like, what it does and what it can do.
Building.
Or could do, I guess. And as seen in the maps, it shows itself by not having these, like, gigantic Tiberium fields that you can just, like, harvest forever. So I guess, like, in that sense, this is smart. Also, yeah, that was pretty annoying. You know, you see this kind of, like, map design, and you're like, oh, whatever, it's no big deal. Like, there's gonna be trees and stuff to block it. It's like, no, all of a sudden, artillery just shows up. And please ignore everything that just happened to some grenadiers. Quick grenadiers. I didn't have any. Watch these orcas in action. They're great. Unlike grenadiers, they're the worst ever. So this is like the kind of thing you kind of get disappointed by when you play with like new tech. It's like you see it every once in a while. Like I feel like I experience it like quite a bit in my playthroughs, where it's like, oh, I've unlocked artillery, and then I don't really do much with it, which is as much an issue with me as maybe just like the circumstances that I find myself in when playing these missions. Because again, like, why would I bother with artillery if I have flame tanks, or artillery when it like the way that the map's built doesn't really call for it, that sort of thing. And we can see with the orcas are cool. Obviously, the Nod forces have like a direct counter with regards to the SAM sites. Rocket soldiers are still good against them, but if you want to make any sort of headway and like actually be able to destroy stuff, you have to buy 3 orcas, which is $4,500, I believe, investment, to be able to like one shot at a turret, or at least like one salvo. Like, that was really close. If that last missile didn't destroy it, I'd be finding myself reloading again. No, I would be repairing it at a rather steady speed, so on.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Moving out. Unit reporting. Moving out.
So because I've got some Humvees that I don't really care about, I'm just going to use them to scout for turrets, and then use orcas to destroy the turrets.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Kind of a really reliable 1-2 punch in this instance, because we don't see any SAM sites, so there's not much to be worried about, so to speak.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting.
Our base is under attack.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
For now, I've only got 3 helipads for orcas, but I find that like the more I use them, the more I'm like, I usually gravitate towards I'd say between 4 and 5 helipads.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Just because while turrets are like a defensive structure, so they obviously have some armor, going up against, say, like a construction yard or a refinery, while they may not be armored to the same degree, or even if they are, they'll have massively larger health pools.
Moving out. Affirmative.
And 3 Orcas, again, they barely take out a turret, so you're not going to have much of a success versus larger buildings.
Yes, sir. Moving out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Unit affirmative. 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 Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Moving out. Waiting. Moving out. Unit affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Unit reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Construction complete.
I guess I should mention that Orcas aren't the most fragile unit, but it's the thing that really
Moving out.
surprises a player when using Orcas is that how much and when they take damage is kind of a mystery.
Unit reporting.
Like, you never quite know if, Rocket X or Rocket Y is going to hit the Orca and do some damage. So sometimes it can lull you in this false sense of security where you figure, well, all those rockets are going to miss, or 90% of the rockets are going to miss, and next thing you know, your Orca takes an extra hit, dies as a result, and then you're paying a lot of money to replace it.
Cancel.
Vehicle reporting.
I think an Orca is something like 1,200,
Affirmative.
and I don't do it, but thinking about it, it's kind of like the same Harvester situation where if you do end up losing an Orca,
Moving out.
you should probably just sell the helipad and rebuild it.
Yes, sir.
You get a couple of infantry you can sacrifice or use to destroy churches or stuff.
Yes, sir.
And you get a good return on investment, since the helipad's probably going to be worth like $600 or something.
Affirmative. Moving out. Unit reporting. Moving out. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, moving out. Yes, moving out. Moving out. Yes, moving out. Moving out. Yes, sir. Moving out.
Construction complete.
Moving out. Waiting for it. Moving out. Yes, affirmative. Waiting out.
I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it, but another reason why I don't particularly like artillery is that you kind of, because you're going to be fighting GDI, unless you're in like a skirmish match in multiplayer where nobody is GDI, which is probably a really rare occurrence. And even then, people spoil Nod helicopters, so but keeping the whole Nod versus GDI dynamic, you're kind of stuck with keeping rocket soldiers with artillery, and we've seen just how efficient Orcas can be against those, and we've seen how good they can be against artillery. So
Building.
it's kind of a toss-up as to if it's really worth using them versus, say, a couple extra light tanks, or I guess just one. But if you're counting the rocket soldier, income as well, maybe it's better spent against with flame tanks and stuff. So I'll be honest, the more I'm watching this video and while I was playing it, not really a fan of this map. Both bases are on the complete opposite corners. Again, there's money issues. I've mentioned that, I'm sure, more than enough for people watching these videos. So you just end up being in this like really long stretch where it's like anytime you try to attack, you kind of need to bring like an excess of units so that the stuff that you encounter on the way won't, you know, dull your army enough to the point where you won't be able to breach through the defenses. And let's face it, you know, they've got SAM sites, there's Obelisk of Light. It's not, you know, it's not a pushover. You kind of have to think about this. And usually thinking in this game, you know, to a certain degree, might just be build a shit ton more medium tanks. But hey, it's still something to give you pause, right? This also kind of shows off like the limitations with the whole adjacent building stuff. I didn't put the power plant next to the helipad because I kind of wanted to build another helipad.
Moving out.
So in the interest of like cutscenes and stuff, is it really important or more important that you play GDI before Nod in this game? Sure, Shepard shows you Kane before... I mean, Seth shows you a photo of Kane anyways. Or like you see a photo of Kane thanks to like a weird briefing from Robot or whatever. I don't know, it's just the video we see with Dr. Mobius didn't really have any extra commentary. In fact, it had no extra commentary if you just watched like the straight version rather than the version with Kane giving his own like LP Red Supre MST3K of the entire endeavor. So really, is it necessary? One could argue that the starting missions in GDI are probably more friendly towards new players. The fact that the first mission you get to build a base, and that you're supplied with like $5,000. And the second mission is kind of the same thing with GDI. It's a very familiar thing, like you're playing on virtually the same map, it's just a little bigger. You're still limited in your build options, but you're still given a lot of money. It kind of builds you up a little bit easier than the Nod campaign does.
Yes, affirmative, affirmative.
Building.
Only thing I can really think of that would make a newer player probably like more frustrated playing the Nod campaign than GDI would be the fact that, I mean, as Nod you're going up against guard towers rather than turrets, which is tougher, especially at the start when you're limited to infantry. The fact that you're facing grenadiers versus minigunners and rocket soldiers is obviously a really big issue.
On hold.
But other than that, like, is it really...
Construction complete. Building.
Unit report.
Like, at what point do you just say, it's not that big a deal, and just play through it, right?
Unit reporting.
The fact that the manual also has a tutorial for the first two missions of either side, which I will be posting that 5 videos before this one. So, hello past everybody. Or is it future everybody? I guess both, technically. Yeah, so the manual has tutorials for both, so it's not like you're at a huge disadvantage to play one campaign versus the other.
Acknowledge.
It's kind of like how, when talking about the finale for the Nod campaign, it's
Moving out.
like how you determine which one is canon, or, you know, you shouldn't spoil the second or third or fourth or whatever other games in the series. Like, you shouldn't mention anything in future games, because realistically, if you were invested in the story, sure, you might know which one is quote-unquote canon, but for Nod, the ending is that you ion cannon a world leader, or at least like a major location, not necessarily the leader specifically, but regardless, you do something that is obviously a major blow to popular opinion, because now, you know, Nod has access to a space laser. I guess, like, more specifically, well, not really the GoldenEye, but as close to the GoldenEye as one gets without actually being James Bond.
Building.
Yes, sir.
But the point still stands that
Unit.
we know that Nod has that in their victory timeline, quote-unquote. But you can't necessarily infer that Nod, therefore, has won. And it also doesn't mean that, you know, future things will go specifically Nod's way. Speaking of the GDI campaign, though, it's also interesting that it solely focuses on Kane as a central aspect. It's very clear that he's the character that you should be like taking, that you should take away from everything. Like, if you don't think that Kane is the central character of this game, then I don't really know how to influence that that mindset. Because, I mean, let's face it, we saw Seth for a few episodes, and he had his own thing to do and try to influence us on. But more importantly, there is no mention of like anybody on the Allied side when it comes to Kane. He doesn't talk about Commander Shepard. You don't talk about a GDI commander. There might be a throwaway line like here or there. Maybe. I'd have to rewatch them all just to, you know, make sure I'm not like, wrong on some super minor line. But there's no attention brought to GDI other than GDI is the enemy of Nod. That's like the limit of the interaction or characterization that Kane brings to his opponents. Meanwhile, in GDI, it's like everything is about Kane. There's obviously Nod is the next best thing because nothing really else. And if nobody knows who Kane is, or if they assume that Kane isn't the issue, but Nod as a whole is, you're still talking about two, and everything we know about Kane as a player, and in some other cutscenes, pretty much like the only thing we want to know about Nod is about Kane.
On hold. Nod building captured. Base is under attack. Primary building selected. Building.
Ready and waiting.
Unit
Yes.
ready.
Moving out. Reporting.
Unit lost.
It's not good. Guess what's good?
Got it.
Building.
So yeah, this is how you get around like heavy defenses in the front if you don't have any money to do anything. Just kind of cheese it, as I always seem to do.
Yes.
I'm sure I'll get money eventually. I probably should have sold the service depot. There's not much like extra I can get from it.
Moving out. Yes. Yes.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
So now comes the slow demise of Nod in this area.
Not building captured.
Perhaps even the next shot.
Unit ready. Unit lost.
Ready and waiting. Reporting. Right away, sir.
Building.
Yes, moving out.
Not building captured.
Normally I would have gone for the airstrip, but the Obelisk of Light always gives me, cause to worry. I always feel like it's gonna have just a little bit more, range than I give it. Or that I estimate, I mean.
Construction complete. Not building captured. Building. Unit ready. Building.
Probably should have also brought up that rocket soldier to help out, but hey, whatever.
Unit ready.
Moving out. Roger. Right away, sir. Roger. Moving out. Moving out.
Our base is under attack. Not building captured.
Also, it's not very helpful when you sell a power plant because you're trying to, kill a flamethrower, and you just get a civilian.
Building. Building. On hold. Not building captured. Construction.
Oh hey, turns out that Nod's got low power. Oh right, SAM sites don't work on power. Damn it.
Building.
Now the only reason I'm trying this is because the AI isn't... It's like stuck just building units and not sending them out on waypoints and stuff, so...
Not building.
I figure I might as well make the best of it and get a free refinery and harvester. Which, obviously, I'm just gonna sell and trash immediately, but hey. When in Rome.
Not building captured.
I also should have gone for a silo at this point.
Building.
But hey, I guess the Hand of Nod will do.
Not building captured. Unit ready. Building. Unit ready.
I should really be selling, the refinery, both guard towers I have, power plant up on the right.
Not building captured. Building.
I could probably get,
Unit
Flame Fangs by now, so...
ready.
Or if not,
Unit lost.
at least, other tanks I could just, dump on this.
Not building captured.
Probably be the smartest thing to do.
Not building captured. Building. Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, yes, sir.
Not building captured. Unit ready. Construction complete. Not deploying unit.
Yes, sir. Ready and waiting. Yes, sir.
Building. Not building captured. Unit lost. Unit ready.
Acknowledge. Roger. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Building.
Ready and waiting. Right away, sir. Vehicle reporting.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Not building captured.
Unit acknowledged. Yes, sir. Ready and waiting. Affirmative. Waiting.
Not building captured.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, acknowledged.
Alright, I I should really be building like a flame tank or something.
Building. Unit.
I mean, that'll do, I guess.
Building. Unit
Report
ready.
right away, sir. Roger. Unit moving out. Affirmative. Reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, moving out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Waiting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Oh hey, those flamethrowers, even though they were in the exact same cell,
Reporting. Affirmative.
still managed to kill each other.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Waiting, sir. Affirmative.
Man, why aren't I flying anything? Again, remember that advice to like pretend it's like 3 a.m.? Not saying it's true. So I think 3 A10s probably lends credibility to the whole. This is like the longer you wait and getting more charges gets you that, but now I'm just like really not sure. Also, there's an example of the fact that if helicopters are in the air, you can't select them. I'm not entirely sure why that's a limitation.